You're about to take a deep dive into one of the biggest true crime cases in the universe, or at least on our part of the planet. From the Hidden Killers podcast and True Crime Today.
So Diddy, right. I mean, everyone knows the name, knows the music.
Huge name, icon.
Exactly. But this article you sent over about his arrest, this is something else. This isn't just like, a celebrity speeding ticket.
No, not at all. This goes way deeper.
Yeah. And for anyone who maybe hasn't seen the headlines, we're talking racketeering charges.
Yeah.
Even sex trafficking allegations.
Serious stuff. The kind of charges that could have huge ripple effects, not just for Diddy, but for the music industry as a whole.
Absolutely. And that's what makes this whole thing so fascinating. I mean, the charges themselves are one thing.
Yeah. But
what really caught my eye, and I think this is where the deep dive gets really interesting, is the silence from Diddy's inner circle.
You're right. That is interesting.
Like, we're talking about a guy who's practically synonymous with having famous friends.
Right. Jay-Z, Naomi Campbell, you name it.
Exactly. But since this arrest, crickets. So what gives? What's the deal with the deafening silence? Is it strategic? Are people genuinely concerned? Or is there something more going on here? Something about the nature of these relationships, about power, about Diddy himself?
Lots to unpack there. And I think it speaks to something bigger, too. Like, this isn't just about one man's downfall. It's a glimpse into how fame really works, the power dynamics, the court of public opinion.
Yeah, and maybe even what we value as a culture.
For sure.
Okay, so let's get into it. So we've got this cone of silence from Diddy's famous friends, right?
Right.
Is this like standard procedure when a celebrity's in hot water?
I mean, it's crisis PR 101 for sure. When a scandal hits, when there are serious allegations, the first instinct is often to distance yourself.
Damage control.
Exactly. And silence, silence can be a very effective tool for that. It's about protecting your brand.
Makes sense. And the article actually had a quote from, I think it was a PR expert, who said that for Diddy's friends, coming to his defense, speaking out, it could actually hurt them more than help.
Oh, absolutely. Guilt by association is a very real thing, especially in the court of public opinion.
Right. And that court, it's like always in session now with social media and everything.
24/7 news cycle.
Exactly. And speaking of social media, can we talk about Usher for a second?
Sure.
Deleting his ex account, then saying he was hacked. Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty sus, don't you think?
Yeah, the timing is definitely interesting. It has that, what do they call it, the Streisand effect.
Streisand effect. Remind me what that is again.
So basically, it's when you're trying to hide something to make it disappear. But that very act of trying to suppress it just makes it way more noticeable.
Oh, right. So Usher deleting his account, it's like it just shines a giant spotlight on his connection to Diddy, makes everyone wonder what he might be trying to hide.
Precisely. Instead of controlling the narrative, he might have accidentally amplified it.
Wow. Okay, so we got the PR side of it, the whole image management thing, but then there's also the very real legal situation, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the article mentioned that the judge even brought up Diddy's temper in court. Diddy's temper, huh? That's not something you hear a judge mention every day, is it?
Yeah.
What was the context there?
Well, from what the article said, Diddy's lawyers were really pushing for bail.
Uh-huh.
But the judge shot it down, and one of the reasons they gave was Diddy's history of, well, let's just say, volatile behavior.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that puts a whole new spin on this whole silence thing.
Right.
Because if you've got someone who's known for having a bit of a temper, maybe people aren't just protecting their image. Maybe they're legitimately scared to say anything.
It's totally possible.
Even if it's just like a neutral statement, Not even defending him, just acknowledging the situation.
Oh, for sure. And then on top of that, there's the whole legal side. We can't forget about that.
Yeah, sure.
Prosecutors, they have a lot of power in these situations. They could start subpoenaing people left and right, anyone who's ever been in Diddy's orbit.
Oh, man. Imagine that phone call.
Right. You get pulled into this huge legal battle, potentially have to testify against someone like Diddy.
Talk about pressure.
Yeah, it's not hard to see why people are keeping their heads down.
Yeah. It's like Diddy's the one at the center of the storm, but everyone around him is getting soaked.
Exactly. And I think it's important to remember, as we're getting into this whole PR aspect and the legal maneuvering, that this is more than just a celebrity scandal. There are some very serious allegations here.
Absolutely.
And at the heart of it all, there are the alleged victims. They're the ones who really matter in all of this.
It's easy to lose sight of that sometimes, I think, when you're caught up in the whole celebrity of it all.
Right.
But you're absolutely right. Those are the stories that really matter.
Their experiences, their voices, that's what needs to be heard. And I think that's something the article kind of glossed over,
Definitely. It's like, Yeah, the silence is interesting, but the reasons behind it and the potential impact on the people involved, that's where things get really heavy.
Absolutely.
Wow. Okay, so we're talking about serious allegations. We're talking about the power of fame, the pressure of public opinion, the potential legal fallout. This is
It's a lot.
it's a lot, and it really makes you think, doesn't it, about how we view celebrity, about power, about accountability.
And what happens when that power is potentially misused?
Exactly.
It's a story with so many layers, and it's still unfolding.
It's a story that, like you said, goes way beyond just Diddy.
It really does.
This deep dive has been, I'll say it, this has been a wild ride. From a celebrity arrest to a crash course in crisis PR with a little bit of human nature thrown in for good measure.
And don't forget the power dynamics.
Oh, right. How could I forget? Power Dynamics 101. So what are your final thoughts? What's the takeaway here?
I think the biggest takeaway for me is just how complex these situations really are. We see a headline, we form an opinion, but there's always so much more going on beneath the surface.
And maybe, instead of rushing to judgment, we need to sit with that complexity for a little bit,
Right.
Really try to understand the nuances, the different perspectives.
I think that's a great takeaway.
Well, on that note, we're going to wrap things up. But as always, we want to hear from you, the listeners. What are your thoughts on this whole Diddy situation?
In a world where the darkest secrets lie just beneath the surface,
They said it was an accident, but the evidence says otherwise.
where hidden killers roam unnoticed in the shadows.
I think you would definitely be looking at a blend of toxic, very bad narcissistic personality traits, and they will be vengeful and possibly resort to violence.
Join Tony Bruschi as he uncovers the truth behind the most chilling cases.
They said it was an accident, but the evidence clearly says otherwise.
Each episode, we dig deep into the minds of those who commit the unthinkable.
To your point on narcissism, he thinks in his own mind how witty he is.
Yeah.
But he lost that jury. I was done with him in 2 minutes.
From unsolved mysteries to infamous crimes.
Geez, you've just talked about how you've taught yourself how to do everything under the sun. I bet you did a YouTube video, how to best kill somebody with a knife.
Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi takes you where few dare to go.
How does someone with such a dark secret go unnoticed for so long?
With multiple new episodes every single day.
We're not just telling stories, we're seeking justice.
Listen now on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Just search for Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi.